Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Sadu, coming to you from my last week in Accra for the summer. So I'm not sure if I've ever spoken about the way that I split my time between the US and Ghana. And I make it a point to spend the summer in the US because I don't want to say obvious reasons, but it's pretty lit in the summertime. You have festivals, you have parks, you have all these wonderful things going on. So I'm looking forward to a summer of hard work because this platform building is something that's totally new, but then also just enjoying a new environment. And so this week, my guest is coming to us from another part of the world, which is definitely not summer. And I love this story because we've known each other for quite a long time and our paths crossed. And I happened to see her on a webinar panel and I said, oh my gosh, the blast from the past. So I reached out and that's how we are here. So let me get right to her bio. She is an education activist and serial entrepreneur. She is a co-founder at STEM Girls Education, a social enterprise with a mission to help more girls in Africa become innovators. An education and women's champion at heart, she holds the belief that empowering women and girls to drive change is essential in fostering a more sustainable and kinder world for all. Previously Chief Business Officer at Ubongo Learning, she was instrumental in the growth of the organization as she led its expansion to 41 countries in Africa, reaching over 30 million kids. And I'm happy to say that it is our relationship that first launched Ubongo Kids in Ghana. Yay! She was named Entrepreneur of the Year in Education by the Women in Africa Initiative, WIA. She's the winner of the Next Billion EdTech Prize 2019. She is also an Acumen Fellow, a Future Elect Fellow, a Global Shaper, which is an initiative of the World Economic Forum, and a Tedx speaker. Doreen Kessy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Florence, for having me. So great to be here.
Wonderful. So let's jump in. Let's get started. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
Okay, I am from Tanzania. I actually grew up in rural Tanzania, but I'm currently living in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I have been working in education technology for many years now. My passion is really to ensure that more kids in Africa, especially girls, get access to quality education.
Nice. So tell us a little bit more about your rural Tanzania. I'm curious because, I don't know so much about Tanzania. I know Dar es Salaam, I think everyone knows Kilimanjaro, but tell us a little bit more about your rural Tanzanian upbringing.
So I was raised by my grandparents in a place called Njombe, Iringa in Tanzania, which is like the southern highlands of Tanzania. Very beautiful place. I had a great childhood, climbing trees, playing on the farm, planting strawberries, attending to animals. So I really had such a lovely childhood. And I went to school there for most of my early primary education. And then I later moved to Dar es Salaam, which is a bigger city, to live with my parents. I completed my primary and secondary education in Dar es Salaam. And then I went to school in Nairobi, Kenya for about 2 years. And that was before I went to the US for my university education. So yeah, I've kind of lived everywhere because then after the US, I moved back to Dar es Salaam and worked with Ubongo, which is how we met. And then I moved to South Africa to expand Ubongo's work here and build a team. And I have not left.
Okay. So South Africa definitely agrees with you. And where are you in South Africa?
Johannesburg.
Okay. So I always like to get a little deeper. Joburg is a big city. So where's your local in Johannesburg?
I live in Rosebank. I don't know if you've ever been here, but yeah, which is it's nice because it has a little bit of everything, and yeah, it's just a lovely place to live, I think.
Yes, yes, yes. I do remember that. Rosebank is quite nice and lovely. Okay. So, you mentioned where you lived and how you traveled and, just looking at your profile, your studies in the US and then coming back. So it's interesting how you found yourself in this social entrepreneurship space. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how you chose your educational path that would set you up to be in the professional space that you are?
So it's so interesting. So yeah, I think growing up in rural Tanzania, I experienced a very different life, say, compared to then when I moved to the US, right? And I think, my grandmother was an educator, a teacher who then became a school principal and the first Black woman in Tanzania to become a school principal. So she was very influential in my life and very serious about education. And she had been the district education officer in Jombe, which which meant she worked with a lot of principals, with teachers. And so I think going to school in that environment and how, and just experiencing firsthand how serious she thought this was, like I needed to learn and I needed to put in the work. But then I could see, I think it wasn't an issue when I was there because, you're growing up in this environment. You're not thinking, yeah, we don't have a classroom. We don't have enough classrooms.
Mm,
Now we are studying outside. You don't think it's a problem when you're like 6, 7, because this is all you know.
right.
So that was my experience. We would learn outside because we didn't have enough classrooms. And for me, it was fun because like now, we're playing with, we're writing on the ground.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Was it fun when, the classes didn't have windows and we would have to go to school very early in the morning, carrying hot pieces of charcoal on this piece of iron kind of, yeah, made of, it's like a bag, but made out of iron. And would have to take charcoal to school because we needed to make a fire for the teacher
Wow.
so that she could warm her hands and write on the board because it was very cold. It was a very cold, like when in winter it would get very cold and the school wasn't really well equipped for that. So you'd be very cold in class. We only had sweaters, like uniform sweaters that are not very warm. And then, of course, a lot of beatings. If you do something wrong, you get beaten
Mm-hmm,
properly.
mm-hmm.
So for me, school was just like, oh my God, I have to go back. And I would have, it just brought me so much anxiety.
Mm.
There were fun moments for sure, but there was a lot of anxiety that I experienced. And I just don't remember learning much. I remember learning a lot outside of school because I would come back from school and, my grandfather would teach me, would help me with homework. I would get to play, plant things, milk cows, feed chickens. And I feel like I learned a lot from that than I learned in school because there was so much fear associated with it. And so after leaving that environment and moving to Dar es Salaam, my learning got better because now you have more, like we had classrooms. It's warmer in Dar also, so that was nice for me because I don't like being cold. And of course, it's an urban city, so just more resources. So that changed, and it's like, oh, it's getting better. Then for high school, I went to a really good school, and it was nice to experience a library, a computer lab, a science lab, something I never had in previous schools. And then when I went to the US, it was just like, what's going on? Like, what?
It just kept getting better.
Just keeps getting better. And I'm like, I'm from like this girl from the village in Tanzania. And now like I'm in this amazing university with like a huge library, like professors who really care, who really want to make sure you're learning. Like, I can actually disagree with the professor in class. Like, what's going on? This is lovely. And so I started to think about my friends that I had left back in Njombe, in rural Tanzania. And I'm like, man, I wish they also had the opportunity to come here and learn like this. I wish they also had this. I had left my siblings. I'm one of 6. So I'd left my 5 siblings in Dar es Salaam. And I was like, oh man, I really wish that they also have the opportunity to learn like this, to come here. And so I organized for my siblings to come. They were able to get a scholarship that if they went to this one specific high school, they would get a full scholarship to uni, which was nice. It wasn't cheap to pay for that, but I convinced my parents to bring them. And so that was nice. But then, after graduation, actually before graduation, some friends and I started a non-profit organization called Smile for Africa. And we said, let's go to, like, my colleagues were from Zimbabwe, and we said, let's go and work on education. Let's see if we can help a couple of kids, stay in school, go to school. And then we did a sports program and then a hygiene program, and we brought like all these supplies. And that also just opened my eyes. I was like, oh my God, there's so much to do back home. Because that was, I think, I would say the first time I actually came home after I'd gone to the US, because I went to Zimbabwe for the work that we were doing, and then I ended up in Tanzania. And so it just gave me a glimpse into like, oh my God, don't forget like where you're from. And like, I would always joke on campus, like, I'm here to study, like, and I'm here studying for the entire village, like for my entire village.
Indeed.
So after this, I'm going home, there's work to do there. And so one day I remember one of the co-founders of this organization asked me, Doreen, if there was one thing that you think would really change Africa, like all these issues that we have, what would it be? I was like, education. Let's get everybody educated. Let's give everybody high quality education. And I think we would really see a tremendous change. And so that was the first time I actually said it, because my thing was, I'm going to do business. I'm going to study business. So I studied international business and economics, and the minor in political science. And I said, it's because I want to make so much money, and then I'm going to like share some of it. So that was my
right.
But that was the first time when he asked me this question. That was the first time I actually thought about it. And I was like, education. So I was like, what if I go back home and try to work with the Ministry of Education? And so that was what I started to think, okay, after my education, I'll go home and I'll look for a job with the Ministry of Education and see where I end up. And so after that, after undergrad, I did my master's, I did an MBA, and I started thinking about, okay, I need to go home. And my mom is a researcher, and she had come across Ubongo's episodes, and they were just getting started. They just had a pilot on their website. And she sent it to me. And she was like, look, I love this. I love what they're doing. And I was like, yeah, this looks amazing. It looks like exactly what I needed when I was growing up, because it was edutainment content, teaching kids in a fun way, teaching math and science, but in a very fun way. And I was like, oh yeah, like if I was taught like this as a kid, I think I would be, I would love math, I would love science and all of these things. So I looked at their website, and they were actually advertising for a chief financial officer role, which I really thought I wasn't ready for something like that. I just felt I needed more experience. So I applied as if to say, let me do it, because my mom will probably keep asking me about this.
Right.
And then I got the job. And I was like, guys, I was kidding. So that's how I ended up working in education technology. And it just worked out. Like it's not something I thought that would would really be the thing for me because I was really thinking about going into business. But it really was the right thing for me. And it's like, I just thank God that he just brought it into my life because it's exactly what I love, what I'm passionate about, and like how I really want to make a contribution in the world.
Yeah. Wonderful. So being with Ubongo from basically kind of the beginning and seeing it grow and expand, being in the same space myself with, education, and have they changed potentially, and what continue to be the challenges for delivering this kind of content in contexts like maybe the one you came from, or even in urban environments? What was distribution like? You all had a silver bullet with knowing that you had a story to tell with each of the different programs. But then what were some of the challenges to getting that story out?
Yeah, several. And obviously, I think more challenges when you're trying to reach kids at last mile versus,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Kids in urban areas, right? Because with urban areas, there is TV penetration, high TV penetration, the use of mobile phones, some levels of the internet access. So we were able to leverage all of that to distribute content through TV. And that really worked, right? And we just were able to expand. It was challenging to convince broadcasters to do this as, without paying for the airtime.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Like, well, we are non-profit, we can't afford to pay for the airtime. So how about we give you free content and you give us free airtime? So I think that was new to them, and because they're used to people paying for those time slots. But we made it work, and it's still working across the continent. So that's great. But then for the kids in rural areas who do not otherwise have TV access, we had to leverage radio. So there's radio programs that go out, but of course, like when you're able to see and also listen, it's different when you're just listening,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the learning is a bit challenging, of course, but it's better than nothing, right? And so I think those challenges are still there. It's been Ubongo started in 2014, I would say 2013. And those challenges are still there across the continent. But I think Ubongo is doing really well because of the approach that they take to distribution. And yeah, I mean, with TV, they're still able to reach like over 30 million households, which is really, really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same experience with trying to move content. Yeah. So speaking of all these countries and your experience living and working around Africa and also your experience in the US, I want to ask you about Glocal Speak. So we want to hear what you hear. So I ask you to share a word, a phrase, or a saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience and why or how you come to value it as Glocal Speak. So you can choose where you are now, where you have been local before. What's your Glocal Speak?
So South Africa is very cultural. Like there's a lot of different tribes, people speaking different languages. And it's so infectious. Like I have some African friends. When I go home, people say, "Oh my God, you talk different now." And it's because the expressions are so funny. I find them funny, but also just really great.
Yeah.
And I like once you talk to them and you hear them say it all the time, you start saying it too.
Yeah.
For instance, there's yo, like yo, like it's just every time like somebody is saying something like I'm so tired. It's like this expression of intensity, and sometimes it's an expression of joy, which is just like, yeah, like something happened, like the election, let's say the elections. I went to vote, and the lines were so long, So it's like this expression, I'm saying it a lot now, which is so weird.
Yeah. It's like, can you believe it? Oh, I love it. It's kind of like Chale. It's kind of like Chale in Ghana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like hybo. It's like no way. Or like wow.
Uh-huh.
So it can just, yeah, it comes up in many different ways. But I'll say the ones that really stand out for me, which are just like, my God, this is amazing, is Sawubona, which is a Zulu, right? And it says, I see you. And the response to that is Sikona, which means I'm here. Like I'm almost here to
Mm.
see you.
Mm.
So it's like, I'm just like, wow, that's how it should be. Like, that's actually what a greeting really should mean. It's like, hey, and then you're like, yeah, I'm here. And I see you for who you are. I validate you. Like, I acknowledge your presence. And yeah, your response is, I'm here. And I think in a glocal, in a world that is so global yet so local,
Yeah.
we are also interconnected. And what happens in China right now this afternoon, actually, it matters to me. It's a problem to me.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a problem, or it can be a good thing or a bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? To me,
Mm-hmm.
somebody living in South Africa, and I think we've seen this with COVID, where somebody, caught a cold in China, and a few months later, we were all sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically.
So it's like, yeah, I need to see you, and you need to see me. And I just love that.
Yeah. I mean, that we're in this education space and also in language, I often say that as much as English is universal, it is probably the least humanistic, if I can say that, language, because most other, particularly, I want to say, indigenous African languages, just indigenous languages are expressions, like words are expressions. So that saying like, oh, I see you, the emotion in it is so meaningful. Whereas, just hi is like, okay, and maybe we've just forgotten it because life is so fast, but the literal translations into like what you're saying, it's just so deep and meaningful. And yeah, something to think about as we communicate. Now, you grew up speaking Swahili, right?
Yeah, I speak Swahili as my first language, yes.
Right. So would you say that there's similarities in the ways of being able to express ideas or thoughts in more than one word that you would love to see expanded in our other local experiences, like just the, translation of or transmission of different sentiments?
Yeah, I think maybe if we are to parallel with what I just shared, in Zulu, in Swahili, it will be habari, which means it's like, what's the story? Like, any news, right? It's like habari. Habari is like news. So it's like, any news.
Mm.
And the response is usually in Zuri, which is like good. But it's more like, it's deeper than hi,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's deeper than, it's like, how are you? And I'm here, I have time. Let's talk about the stories that you'd like to share about how you are, we're living in a world where everybody is in such a rush. We don't
Yeah.
even wait for the response half the time,
Right.
and I think we come up with shortcuts of like,
Yeah.
hi, Mambo,
Yeah.
I just want to quick minute. I am really not interested to understand or to learn about how you're doing, but I'm just doing this out of courtesy.
Right.
It's just like
Yeah.
a checkbox thing. It's the thing we do, but I don't mean it,
Yeah. Lack of presence. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Interesting.
Definitely
Yeah. Well,
something to reflect on.
yeah, exactly. Okay. So you've moved to South Africa to build the business with Ubongo, and then somehow you've transitioned into the science and technology world of EdTech. So tell us now about STEM Girls.
Yeah, so STEM Girls Education is an African social enterprise with a mission to help girls become innovators, or even just become drivers of innovation, right? And this is because we believe in the power of female driven innovation to create a more sustainable, but also a kinder world for everyone. So this has been so interesting because, coming from Ubongo, where we worked, reaching all kids, I think what became clear is that there's still a huge gap when it comes to girls and learning, especially in STEM. So since 1903, right, there has been 572 men who have won a Nobel Prize in physics.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is since 1903. Do you want to guess how many women have won the Nobel Prize in physics?
I feel like only one, and that was recent, but I could be wrong, and it may not have been physics.
Okay. You're so 572 men have won, right? Only 17 women.
Okay.
Since 1903, 17 in
Wow.
physics.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, like, guys, like, this is quite concerning because it's actually STEM and like the science, technology, engineering, and math that are really driving innovations around the world. And so if we have very few women participating, leading, being part of this movement and like where the world is going, then what kind of world are we creating?
Mm-hmm.
Because then our world is just being created by one specific group of people and it's not representative of everyone.
Yeah.
And that's really concerning.
Mm-hmm.
So at STEM Girls Education, we're really leveraging, again, multimedia edutainment, but also coaching and mentoring programs to inspire girls ages 6 to 16 in Africa to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think what we've seen is that girls are involved in these fields, like in these subjects in primary school. They're learning, they're doing it. But something happens when they go to high school and they're like almost done with high school and then going into university. They drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're trying to do is create just a more conducive environment for them and say, like, what is it that you need? What kind of support do you need to really pursue your dreams? So maybe you love it, right? You love physics, you love chemistry, but then you get to high school, maybe it's just more challenging, or the boys are doing better than you, and then you start getting scared. And you're like, maybe this is not for me. Could there be content there for you and like support mechanisms that really enable you to keep going and like cheer you on and say, like, no, you can do this. You want to do this? You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how.
So you're targeting girls from 6 to 16. So what does it look like in STEM Girls Education for a 6-year-old as she progresses through the program? So I'm assuming it's kind of like you want to retain them through that time so then you usher them off into university or A-levels, O-levels, whatever is next at the age of 16.
Yes. So for the younger age group, our purpose is to inspire them.
Okay.
I would say from 6 to 12, we want to inspire you. And so right now we are in production of animated edutainment series that is going to really focus on STEM and making it fun and just showing them like, here's the world that you can create if you go for this and like, this is what's possible for you. And then for the older age group, so this would be 13 to 16-year-olds, we are equipping them. And so we are going into schools and putting together in-school clubs, girl clubs that are really focusing on helping them, whether it's robotics, coding, and things like that. So really like experiential learning. And then we are also testing this model of having like almost like STEM gyms, like STEM innovation centers in communities where now kids from different schools or even kids out of school can come and interact with different things and just do different activities that help them have like practical learning, right? So for the younger age group, we're going to do broadcast distribution for that with the animated edutainment. And then for the older age group, it's going to be more practical learning, video guides, and then in-school clubs and hands-on kind of stuff.
Okay. Nice. So now's the business question. So you're a co-founder and this is a startup. So tell us about the business journey. How are you securing funding? Is it partnerships, public-private partnerships? What's the landscape or the framework for the business of STEM Girls Education?
Yeah, so we're going to do obviously most of it is going to be donor funded, especially in the beginning with the in-school clubs and just creating content that we are distributing into schools because most schools are not going to be able to pay us. So we're going to have to subsidize that with donor funding. But then on the other hand of the animated series, that we are going to distribute widely to broadcasters, and there we are going to be licensing as well to video on demand platforms, but also explore other ways to monetize that content. And it's going to be quite good. We are working with a really good production company here. So I think it will not be difficult to license it.
Sure. So when I think about how we get our work out, because I have a pilot that's out on Amazon Prime. And so the pilot is meant to try to get, further funding and distribution and all of that. So, and it's on Amazon Prime, which is definitely more of a diaspora or Western facing platform. So the question is, how does the diaspora play into your strategy, if at all, and even in how you potentially are developing content that is global, so to speak, for the African diaspora in particular?
Yeah. So we are going to be also distributing it on places like YouTube. And that's where really the diaspora community is. And I think, what I've seen, at least even from my experience at Ubongo, is that, once people have visibility and they know this is, available and it's good and they love it, then even broadcasters from other parts of the world also platforms like that really open the door. So you just want to, I think, as we're building this content, we're not thinking about every girl in the world. We're focusing on reaching the African girl. But I think, there's a lot of people and African girls from around the world in diaspora who would be interested in this. And so we will reach them through those platforms like YouTube.
Okay, nice. So I want to understand a little bit more about how you think, you're going into schools and as an activist, thinking about curriculum. And a lot of the curriculum that we have is not necessarily Pan-African. Like when you think about definitely social sciences is definitely not Pan-African, and some sciences, but the fact that all of our science that we're learning typically is not in a native language, that's something to think about. So where do you see your role potentially in influencing curriculum locally and across Africa potentially?
Yeah, the curriculum conversation is very tricky in this kind of in this kind of solutions. Once you start to bring in the curriculum, sort of like let's format it according to this curriculum or that curriculum, then it becomes very hard to scale, and then it becomes even political. Because now what you have to do is like you need to get approvals from the Ministry of Education in every country to really make sure that it's aligned with their curriculum. And I think honestly, like with where the world is going, like we need to make sure that we are really contextualizing the learning. I think that's the biggest thing. Is this content really for this child? And that is it effective for them? Does it make sense for them, considering their experiences, the environment that they're in? I think that is really more important than how something is fitting in the bigger picture. So we really focus on making sure that we are co-creating content with the kids that we want to reach. We are collecting feedback. It's taking their context into consideration and it's relevant to them. But also it's based on topics rather than like it's based on topics and levels of difficulty rather than this curriculum or that curriculum. That really slows us down.
Right.
And now these curriculums, first of all, they need to be changing quite a lot more often than they
Exactly.
So most of these curriculums are really old and they are not even suitable anymore or relevant. So you don't want to peg yourself against something that has already expired.
Right.
So it's like we need to make sure that we are current and we are looking at the world and saying these are the challenges that these children will face, and most of them we don't even know. But how can we equip them in such a way that they're able to navigate such a complex world going forward years from now? What are those tools that they really need? And unfortunately, most of the curriculums are not taking that into consideration.
Exactly.
And so I think as people who come in to fill the gaps and complement the work that other people are doing, the government is doing, I think we need to look at what is the gap. Let's fill that gap instead of trying to align so much with them and what probably already not working.
Yeah. And I mean, it just reminds me of what you said about how you didn't get much out of education early on, and you got so much more out of the experience of being at home and experiential learning. And you know, I've been thinking a lot about curriculum just generally because I believe that the curriculums that we are being sold and having to commit to in Africa are colonized education. You know, we're not developing the education that we need for us. So to your point, it's old and it's expired. And so when I think about creating these new modules, et cetera, because at the end of the day, it's a business that we're feeding into because you're training people to be able to take these certain tests that then are gateways to this, that, or the other. So as we try to disrupt that process, right? So there's no reason that you couldn't develop a whole science STEM curriculum that then could prepare someone to take those same exams or different exams that prepare them to be actual better learners in these higher education institutions. So it's just really, I'm always trying to prompt the conversation about how we are allowing ourselves to be marginalized as, I guess, consumers of education to some extent by just kind of defaulting to what is given as opposed to this, you know, radical way of you're calling it filling the gap, but I think we're on the edge of the next new. So we should really be thinking about like, this is how curriculum needs to be moving forward, period. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was in Cote d'Ivoire last year. I lived there for 3 months and I learned that they're still using the French curriculum. Like nothing has changed.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, what? This is so bad for the people. You know, it's like their identity, the very fabric of who they are as human beings. And it's so heartbreaking.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you don't want to go there and be like, yeah, give me the curriculum. Now let me build something based on this curriculum. No, we want to terminate.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wipe this out, wipe it out. Let's start over.
Yes, exactly. And this is a great time to talk about a mindset hack. So what is your favorite or innovative mindset hack? How do you hack your mindset? Something that you do, something that you've heard of, or something that you can imagine?
So there's this thing I do that I call self-coaching.
Okay.
And actually, I would say this before I actually go into that. I think it's really important to understand that we are all very unique. Like there's only one Florence in the entire world.
Yeah.
Like take that in for a minute. Like there's nobody like you. Right? And because that is true, then it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what your experiences are, your successes or your failures. Because even if you actually fail, right? Like your failures will be very unique to you also in many ways. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And so whatever it is that you're creating or testing, I think it's really important to say, you know what? Yes, somebody else could do the same thing, but it won't be me, and they will probably do it slightly different from me. So it's actually important for us to show up as unique human beings and actually do whatever it is that we need to do, and not be so afraid to fail, because even in failing, actually it's good if it's only you'll be creating something unique, whether failing uniquely. Even
exactly.
yeah. So I would say that, and I try to remind myself that, of that, whatever it is that maybe I still I don't like about myself or I'm working on, I try to remind myself, like, listen, there's only one you. And so if you're going to do this, it's still going to be unique because it's you doing it. So don't sit back and say, no, I'm going to let other people do it. Why? They're going to be better than me at this. Just go for it, because again, there's nobody like you. So it will be interesting to discover what you have and what you can bring to the world. But something I learned years ago is the self-coaching thing. It's a model, actually, that I learned from the coaching school. And it's basically processing, it helps you process your situations, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your results, and looking at them and seeing what's happening here and how can I change things. So it starts with a C, which stands for circumstances. And so you would take a circumstance and be like, how sometimes we have, let's say I got fired from a job, right? There's going to be a lot of drama around that in your thought process. So it's going to be like, I am not good enough. I suck. And I'm just never going to be hired again. She gives you this opportunity to say, like, what is the circumstance exactly? And is it factual? It has to be completely factual. Like if you went to the court, it needs to be able to be proven as fact. So it would be like, you got fired is a fact, right? And then you'd be like, the next step is like, so what are the thoughts that I'm thinking about this circumstance that I got fired? And it would be like, I feel like I am not good enough. I feel like I'll never get a job. And you'd write all of them down. And then you'd go to the next step and like, what are the feelings you're feeling about the thoughts that you're thinking? And then you would write all of them down, and you'd start to look at all of these feelings, the thoughts, and you'd be like, is this actually true? Is this thought true? Is it serving me well, or is it not? And do I need to like drop it, or do I keep it? And then you would go from feelings, you'd go to, so what are the actions? What actions am I taking because of the feelings that I am feeling? Maybe you've given up. You're not looking for a job anymore. You don't want to go outside anymore. You have isolated yourself. So you write those down, and then you would also look at those actions and be like, what's going on? And then look at, okay, after the actions, you go to what are the results that I'm getting because of the actions that I'm taking. And so I find this process very helpful because it exposes the drama. And it keeps the real stuff.
Yeah.
It exposes the drama and just helps you see like all of this is just drama, and then this is the actual stuff that you can work with. And you can do this yourself. You don't need to go to a therapist for it. You can just, I think the more you do it, the better you become. Like you become really good at it, and you're really able to see exactly what's going on and how to fix it. So sometimes it could be your thoughts are just, because our thoughts really drive our feelings. And so if I change how I'm thinking about this, then I will change my feelings, I'll change my actions, and then my results will also change.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I really think the results piece is so key, because once you look at the results, then see, this is not the result that I want. So then it helps to recalibrate the whole cycle again to get to a place where you're more balanced and able to act in a way that's more beneficial for yourself. So yeah, I like that. That's great. Is that, you said that's from the coaching school?
Yeah, it's called the coaching school. It's by Brooke Castillo. It's quite good. She has a podcast. I've always loved her stuff. really good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So speaking of podcasts and things like that, we're curious about who Doreen is when she's not working and being an entrepreneur and thinking big things for girls in STEM education. Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Are you a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens? Or what other things do you do in your leisure time?
Yeah, I am definitely. I would say I'm a listener. I'm more of a listener than a reader. I would love to read more for sure. I always do that thing in the morning where you do the minute you wake up, you start reading. I do it for a week and then boom, I forget. And then I'm like, I will read at some point. But I listen to a lot of podcasts. I just love all these like co-founder kind of conversations, like how I built this is one of my faves. I love the Haberman Lab. I love Paul Robbins when I'm feeling like somebody just needs to kick my ass. Like somebody just tell me like it is. She's amazing. I love the stories from This American Life.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm very interested. Also, I love Tim Ferriss' show. I now love the CEO Diary as
Mm-hmm,
well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm loving I listen to quite a lot of real estate investing as well,
Okay.
something I'm just interested in.
Okay.
And also, when I'm not working, I love to play tennis. I love to roller skate. I love to, I ride a motorcycle as well. So I just like to go out and just be on my scooter and just, yeah, I love that on a warm day.
Nice.
Now it's very cold, so
You
yeah.
can't ride. You ride. So what do you ride? What's your bike of choice?
My scooter currently is a Suzuki Bagaman.
Okay.
So quite fun.
It's just fun. Yeah, nice. That fearlessness
Yeah.
comes out.
Yes, yes. It's like let's go. It's just like there's something very freeing about it,
Yeah.
and very it requires confidence for sure.
Yes, indeed. Exactly. Exactly. So nice. Someday we hope to see you scooting along the roads in Rosebank. Yeah, in Rosebank. Rosebank with a team of STEM girls with you, because that's the kind of thing we want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Doreen, this has been lovely. I really, really appreciate your inputs and your insights and the work that you're doing, because I have a friend who's here and she has 2 boys and 1 girl, and she's really contemplating leaving Ghana because of or she's thinking about it. I mean, she has a business here. It makes it difficult, but she's really has thought about it because the way that girls are afforded opportunity and thought of in the education system really puts them at a disadvantage. And she's, her daughter's bright, she's inquisitive, and the education system is just not necessarily going to be built for her to be as successful as she knows her daughter can be. And so I think it's so important that initiatives like yours get into the schools and into the mindsets of families in particular, because I think that's where it really starts. Because the fact that she's thinking about it means that her family has thought about it. And that's the first step in activism, because if the family's thinking about it, they're going to make sure to figure out how to counter what's going on in the system somehow. So thank you for this work.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
So do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners before we say goodbye for today?
I would say, just maybe go for it, like whatever it is that you want to do and what you really aspire to achieve. I think, just start, just go for it. I'm even thinking about what you just shared with me, this story, and I'm just thinking about how important like micro schools are gonna be.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Yeah, like I always thought, man, I'm not taking my kids to school. Like we're gonna have to figure this thing out. Like because we can create that learning for the child. Like it's becoming more and more possible because there are so many tools out there that are already available. You just need to facilitate and maybe just help the child get through the learning and stuff. But I think with where the world is going to begin with, like we need our children to be super independent and like to be able to learn how to learn. That means a teacher writing on the board is not helpful. Us really organizing everything for them and telling them exactly what to do is not helpful, because the world is not going to be like that. And it's changing more and more. Like, you just need to figure it out, because there's always a new innovation. Something has changed completely. So I'm thinking about, like, how do you actually approach that? I think sometimes let's figure out, like, let's do a micro school in this community with 5 other children, and let's design their learning with the help of all these other platforms out there and curriculums, and let's do it. It's like just becoming so mobile, like just how we don't like, we're using Uber, you have to have a car. I think education is also going there. It's like you don't necessarily have to go to that building over there called a school, but you can be in this house right here, and we can actually create that learning environment by inviting 5 of your other friends around the same age and like really helping you learn through this with the help of this curriculum and this content online and other activities you can do outdoors. So I've just really been dreaming and thinking about that as well.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great micro schools. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's been a conversation. One of my guests in the last month also brought it up. So those are great words to leave our listeners with. Yes. Thank you so much. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, subscribe, leave us a review, check out the show notes. They're very rich. And until next time, bye for now.